welcome to the SEC Unfiltered channel. I'm your host, Dave Shumate, and I am thrilled to be joined by Mississippi State men's basketball coach, Chris Jans. Coach Jans, appreciate you joining us today. How's everything in Starkville?
Everything's good. Big sun, blue skies. It's a great day to be in Starkville.
No doubt, no doubt. Y'all wrapping up some summer practices. But, Coach, so you've been – because when was you officially – I mean, you've been on the job now for 2 years. But what was the first month you officially got into Starkville? Was it around March, April, or what, 22?
Yep, March of 22. We were fortunate enough to have made the NCAA Tournament my final year, as it turned out, at New Mexico State. And we had beaten UConn on Thursday and got beat by Arkansas on the round of 32 on Saturday. Took the job Sunday morning, flew back from Buffalo to Las Cruces Sunday, and then flew to Starkville Monday. So it was a quick turnaround from losing in the tournament to starting a new job. And as you well know, you've heard from plenty of coaches that first few months is nothing like you're going to experience until you go through it.
No, you got your nose to the ground, you're grinding, recruiting, getting a staff together. But so you've been there 2.5, 3, we're approaching 3 years. Thoughts on Starkville, like hobbies? Had you ever played in Starkville before with any other previous teams or anything?
I was new to Starkville. I'd never been to Starkville. I had played Mississippi State again while the head coach at New Mexico State. We played them in Jackson in 2019. And fortunately, for me at the time, we won. And I don't know if that had anything to do with getting on their radar or not. But as I look back, I certainly was glad that we won that game.
Yeah. Well, Coach, y'all have had a tremendous amount of success so far in your first 2 seasons. What would you attribute that to? Would you even say, I'm going to directly ask you, would you say you're probably not, but would you say you're a little surprised how fast, back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances? Coach, you've done it in New Mexico State. You've had success everywhere you've been. So it's probably not a shock to you, but I think for some people, outside really I know Ben Hallen had some success at Mississippi State. Obviously, Rick Stansbury did back when I was in high school and college. But are you kind of surprised right off the bat? That y'all made 2 tournament appearances in your first 2 years? I think some would be a little surprised by that. I know you probably aren't, but what would you attribute the success in these first 2 seasons?
I would say first and foremost was walking into a situation where Coach Howland and the previous staff had recruited some fine people, some really good players. I was elated with what we inherited. And obviously in the landscape of college basketball, portal was just kicking in. NIL was really kicking in. So we had to re-recruit those guys, and knock on wood, we were fortunate enough to keep a lot of the guys that we inherited that we wanted to keep. And I've credited Coach many times before because it's real. We had some great players that we inherited, and then in the end, like you said, we weren't surprised. I don't think any coach was probably going to get on something like this and tell you that they were shocked by winning. That's kind of what they hire you to do. And I would agree that most people maybe outside of our inner circle were a little surprised or thought maybe we're ahead of schedule, if you will. But, in our locker rooms, in our meeting rooms, that was the goal from day one. When you get, introduced to the fan base, you're obviously trying to get people excited about, the change. And we talked about it that, we're not here to build a program. It's not going to be a 3 or 4 year process. We're going to try to be in the tournament each and every year, starting with this particular year. And we're excited about the 2 appearances. We're not excited about the early exits. And so there's certainly a lot of room to grow. And there's a lot more milestones out there for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as you know, I grew up when Stansbury had him roll into the Hump. Was one of the harder places. The Humphrey Coliseum was one of the harder places to play, probably, if not the hardest. He'd be up there with Rupp. I think Gottfried had some success at Alabama and Coleman Coliseum. But it was usually Alabama, Kentucky, back in that day, Mississippi State, Florida, kind of were the teams kind of running it back then. So again, as you know, Mississippi State's not unfamiliar with success on the hardwood. Went to the Final Four. I forget the coach's name, escapes my head. He was an assistant coach at St. Stanislaus when I used to play basketball for a while. But
Coach Williams.
yeah,
Coach Williams, Richard Williams.
Richard Williams, correct. But you're right; they're not strange to success at Mississippi State at all in basketball. But Coach, transitioning to this year, heading into the 24-25 season, returners. I mean, obviously everybody knows Josh Hubbard, Cameron Matthews is back, Sean Murphy's back. You brought in some newcomers, two familiar faces from the SEC, Riley Kugel and from Florida. Was it Kansas? It seemed like for a brief minute. Then you got wing. You brought in RJ Melendez from Georgia, guard Kanye Clary from Penn State, center Michael Nwoko from Miami, and center Jeremy Fumina from Rhode Island. What are some things that you're fired up about with this roster heading to 2020, 24, 25? And what are some things that may keep you up at night from that standpoint of filling this roster out?
Yeah, we're in the last week of our summer workouts, so we got a better idea of who we are and what we need to work on and what our staff needs to think about during the break when we return to school and get it back going again. But we're excited about this group. You know, you mentioned the returnees along with, you know, Sean Jones as well. But we got a nice core of guys that have proven themselves. And the best part about, you know, guys like Hubbard and Matthews is they've shown already the ability and want to step into more of a leadership role on this particular team with guys like Tolu Smith and DJ Jeffrey, who have been stalwarts for this program for years. Gone, you know, these two have filled their shoes, if you will, from a locker room perspective, and it's really nice to see that happening in the summer. But you mentioned, you know, the 6 portal kids that we brought in, 4 of them more perimeter-based guys, and then the 2 bigger guys in Fumina and Nwoko. And, you know, I'll start with those 2 is, you know, they got huge shoes to fill. You know, they're a little more unproven than a Jimmy Bell and a Tolu Smith were last year. But they're obviously, you know, good players in their own right, or we wouldn't have brought them in. And so that's a big key for us. You know, we got to have those 2 guys along with Guy Chol, who's a rising sophomore for us that I got some experience last year as a true freshman. Of that 3, we're going to have to figure it out. You know, is it going to be a 3-headed monster? Is it going to be someone's going to emerge this fall and take it over? You know, I don't know yet. It's still up in the air. They're battling each and every day, but we're going to be different, you know, down there. We're not going to be as inside-out oriented. We're not going to be throwing the ball in the post to Tolu and seeing if they double us or not. But on the perimeter, with the addition of the guys you mentioned with Kanye and Claudio Harris and Riley Kugel and RJ Melendez, those 4 guys are all proven at the Power 5 level to go get a bucket. You know, and so Josh Hubbard is probably the happiest person in our locker room because, you know, some of the attention that he receives each and every game will go away. Certainly he's going to be circled on the scouting report, but we got other options now that have a little more scoring ability, and I think it's going to make us more effective on the offensive end. We've got more depth than we've ever had. We're more talented 1 through 4 than we've ever been with that depth. So we're going to be a little more perimeter oriented maybe than we've been in the past. Now, what keeps me up at night is, you know, we don't have a DJ Jeffries and a Tolu Smith and a Jimmy Bell, and we don't have nearly as much physicality or girth to our team. And so defensively, on paper, it looks like, you know, we may take a step back and not be quite as effective, at least in the style that we play. And so we're going to have to figure that out. But I think we're going to be able to score the ball a little bit better, and hopefully our defense won't fall off too much.
Hey, Coach, you mentioned Josh Hubbard. I think everybody's aware of him, but were you even a little, I mean, I asked you a surprise question earlier about your success so far in 2 years in Starkville, and obviously you weren't. That was kind of your plan. But were you surprised about his ability, just the transition was as easy as it was? It seemed like, I know he was a dominant player, led all-time leading scorer in the state of Mississippi, but did that shock you, his ability to transition into the league? I don't want to use the word easily, but with relative success.
Heck yeah. I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said, you know, it's one of those deals where when you recruit people, sometimes you have a vision for them on, you know, what they could do, you know, walking into your program. But does it happen very often? No, it doesn't. But with Josh, it did. And more. I don't think any of us said, hey, you're going to come in and, you know, lead us in scoring and break a bunch of records and have a type of season that is such a memorable one, and to kind of take the SEC, by fire, if you will, by storm. And he expected it. That's what I tell people. I don't think anyone outside of Josh and his inner circle, his family, expected it, but he had been preparing for this moment his whole life. His work ethic is second to nobody. He's got just an unbelievable approach to him, and he's a veteran. He's mature beyond his years, the way he handles himself. And now, after having coached him, for a full year, I understand why he was able to do the things that he does. But the best part about him is he's a better person than he is a player, and he doesn't feel like he's got it all figured out, and he knows he hasn't arrived yet, if you will. He's got a lot of work to do. So, yeah, I was surprised, but nothing he's going to do from here on out is going to surprise me anymore.
Yeah, you're right. There's probably nobody more fired up than Josh Hubbard about the perimeter additions y'all had. That's only going to help him. Coach, transition into some other non-Mississippi State storylines here. What's your thoughts on NCAA tournament expansion? Are you 72? I've seen numbers 72 going to 76. What's your thoughts on that?
Gosh, I mean, personally, from a coach and a fan's perspective, I love that time of the year. I'm like, like everybody does that has any interest in basketball. If you're in the industry like we are, or if you're a casual fan, that's the 3 weeks that we take over the sports world.
Yeah.
Everybody's tuned in. It's the greatest show on earth. I mean, there's nothing like it. So from that perspective, I know you could argue why expansion is better, but I personally wouldn't want it to change. I don't, when I'm through coaching and they're kicking me out of it, I think this is the best format, and it's been tried and true. And I'm not sure why you don't mess with happy, and I know it's not quite the same, but I just love the format and where it is, and the excitement that it provides, and the storylines that always come out of it.
2 more questions, Coach. I appreciate you joining us. I'm going to put you on the spot here because I asked 2 coaches this that are in your league already we've interviewed. If 15 of the 15 other coaches, let's just say they lost their job, Chris Jans is the only employee in the SEC. Which one of those 15 coaches, if you could pick one to add to your staff, a current coach in the SEC, who would it be and why?
I had all of them if I could, first of all.
That's one of the answers the other coach gave.
They're there for a reason. If I had to hire just one off the top, I'd probably hire Bruce Pearl. I got a lot of respect for him. I mean, he's done it at every level. I know his career path and all the winning that he's done. And, he's had to handle some adversity, and he's overcame that. And now he's taken a program to new heights. And he's a grinder, to top it all off. I see him on the trail, and he works his butt off, and he cares about, the profession. See him in the meetings and hear the interaction that he has with the other coaches. He's not afraid to speak his mind. And obviously he's a heck of a basketball coach at the same time. And certainly, like I said, I mean, you couldn't go wrong with any one of the guys that are leading these programs right now. But just off the top, he'd probably be the one that if I had to choose just one, he'd probably be the one.
Yeah, you said he's won everywhere. UW, Milwaukee, Tennessee, now at Auburn, a program traditionally doesn't have a lot of success. He's got them as one of the new premier programs in the country. Coach, last question, a funny one. What is the most irate Chris Jans has ever been in your entire basketball career, where you were probably like, somebody should have been reeling me in a little bit? Maybe you got ejected. Maybe you just got one technical. Going back to even your New Mexico State days, maybe even high school days. Any coaching example here you can tell me where you're like, I may cross the line.
My answer is not a direct answer to your question, but I did get ejected from a game in junior college. It was decades ago. I was the head coach. And that particular game, if I remember correctly, it's the only time I was ever wearing a mic. They wanted me to wear a mic to get some sound bites. So I agreed to do it. Certainly I had veto power, right? This was a long, long time ago. So I get into a discussion with an official, and this official gives me a technical foul. Then he eventually throws me out of the game. And I can't for the life of me figure out why he's throwing me out of this game. Like, I swear, I know every coach says that, but I wasn't thinking at the time, but I was wearing a mic.
Yeah.
And they have to do a post-game report. And so he didn't realize that I was wearing a mic. And in his post-game report, he said in his report that I said certain things, and I had the mic. And for once in my life, I had proof that I didn't deserve to be thrown out of the game. And I didn't say what he said I said. So I was like kind of fired up, like, oh, I got it. Like, there's no way, you know? Yeah. And so, again, it was a long time ago, and it was kind of a wild time, but I was proven to be correct, and there was some discipline handed down. And, I was supposed to sit out another game, and they, reprieve the suspension. I'm not sure if that's the correct terminology for it, but it wasn't the most irate I've ever been, but I was very irate after it happened, and just couldn't believe the coincidence of actually having a mic on me. I think it's the one and only game of my life that I've actually had a mic on me during the whole game. So that's quite an interesting story for me.
That's probably one of the few times you're fired up to be mic'd up. Like you said, you got evidence, man. We got evidence. We didn't. I shouldn't have been ejected. But Coach, I appreciate you joining us. I know I don't have to tell you this. You know you're doing a phenomenal job in Starkville. Roster, like you said, looks as deep as it's been than your other previous 2 years, and that was success too. So I'm sure you're going to be phenomenal this year, Coach. I wish you nothing but the best in this upcoming 2024-2025 season.
All right, Dave. Appreciate your time. Thanks for having me. Hail State.